And welcome to the Accenture iConnect session. We are here, as you all know, to celebrate women in technology, and there's more power to you. We've also got our social handles up live on screen for all of you to have a look. Accenture India, tweet and tag us, show us some love at hashtag GHCI15. We also have career conversations happening on Facebook at Accenture India. We've some hard job skills that are up on display. You could also walk into our career booth at stall S1. We also have something for you, which is a cause that I'm sure all of you are keen to promote. We at Accenture are tied up with code.org. We are promoting an hour of code for each and every one of you to actually step forward, promote technology, promote coding, walk into our hands-on booth, hands-on lab, walk into our career booth. You can make a pledge of just 1 hour of code. I'm sure all of you are going to stand up and do that right after this session and after lunch. Now, I'd like to also welcome on stage, and please give a big round of applause to our talent strategy and our human capital and diversity lead, Danya Rajeshwaran.
Hi, everyone. Am I audible? Yes. Awesome. An absolute pleasure and honor to be here and to see a room full of women technologists. Absolutely thrilled. And welcome to this session on Accenture Celebrating Women in Technology. So as I dive in and set some context, let me also start by a very brief introduction about myself. I've been with Accenture for 10 years, done a variety of roles. Prior to Accenture, worked with a variety of organizations. But the one part of my job that I truly love is making Accenture an inclusive organization. Right? It's a deep commitment that starts from the very top of the organization, and what we do today, and as we continue doing in the years to come, stands in testimony to the level of impact that we want to make to the society that we operate in. So with that, let me introduce my co-panelists. Sanjeev, would you please like to take the stage? So Sanjeev is our digital lead globally. So he leads our global delivery network for digital, which means that he gets to travel around the world and do cool stuff, leading the way for Accenture in the digital space. Sanjeev, very happy that you could take the time to be here with us today.
Thanks.
All right, so let me introduce my second co-panelist, Somla, if you'd like to take the stage. So Somla Sarkar is our corporate strategy lead for the technology organization globally. So she's a managing director, been with the organization for several years, and of course gets to do front-ending client corporate strategy stuff, and we'll speak more about that. So Somla, glad to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Okay, my third panelist, Mr. Jayant Swami. Please take the stage, Jayant. So Jayant leads our technology growth platform for all of our delivery centers in India, right? A significantly large role. And incidentally, he's also deeply passionate about women in technology as a topic. He's our sponsor and leadership sponsor, if I might say, in making sure that we're doing the right things in enabling women in technology. So Jayant, very happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Last but not the least, definitely, Manisha, please take the stage. Manisha Sriraman is one of our how do I say this? She's one of our leading women technologists at Accenture, right? So she's a person who's lived and breathed technology architecture right through her career, and we're actually deeply privileged to have her on stage here because she will also be able to share a little bit about her journey as a woman technologist and what does it really take for us to be at the leading edge of innovation and technology. So Manisha, welcome.
Thank you.
So here's where we are, some basics. This has to be an interactive session, which means please keep your questions coming. You'll see on screen the SMS to which you could text it, or if you have a question, live, please feel free to put up your hand at appropriate times, and I'll make sure that we have the segments to do that. But that's the number to which you can SMS your questions, and my colleagues here will make sure that we have the opportunity to pick those up. So as we dive in, right, and we have the next 40, 45 minutes or so to do this discussion, we are today talking about celebrating women in technology. We're talking about how technology is converging and making sure that our worlds are truly evolving every single day. Over yesterday and today, across different sessions that you would have been sitting through, you'd have been hearing about how technology is not just changing the way that we live today, but it's actually changing the landscape for tomorrow. So, Sanjeev, first question goes to you, really. When we talk about technology, right, and from a consumer lens, what are your perspectives as to how technology is evolving in the consumer angle?
First of all, thanks for inviting for this session. I'm really privileged to be here, and I hope this session will probably kind of add some value to your thoughts and your ideas around how you can make a career in technology and how you can get advantage with what's happening in technology. The first thing is that technology has definitely changed and is changing at an extremely fast pace, especially the last 2 decades. So I would answer a question in 2 bits. One is that let's understand what has changed. So is my voice audible at the back? So if you look at what has really changed, I want to just simplify for you. But what has really changed is, one is the power of computing, right? Which means, let me ask you a question. How many of you are still? So first of all, please all of you raise your hands. One hand, right? I don't want to do double counting here. So one hand, and all the people who are using smartphones, which could be Samsung, iPhone, anything which does internet on your phone, can you put your hands down? Okay, so there's only one person who's doing analog with the button phone. Okay, so the point which I'm trying to make is that if I had asked this question 10 years back, you would have seen more than 80% people still having their hands raised, right? That was just 10 years back. So it has really changed a lot over the last 2 decades, and just want to let you know that the power that your phone has is equal to the supercomputer in 90s. The same amount of power. So that one thing has changed over the last 2 decades. The second thing which has changed is internet itself. And 40% of our world population is actually on internet today. And it's moving very, very fast. So they are having access to all the information that they need to make the right decisions, right? And the third thing is devices. So it's no more smartphones, but you will feel sensors everywhere everywhere where you go. Now you have connected homes, connected cars, connected shoes, clothing. So everything has sensors. So it is no more only smartphones, but anything that can get connected will get connected in the future. The projection is that by 2020, you will have 50 billion connected devices, which will be much, much more than the population of the world, right? So that's where the world we are living. And these 3 changes and trends, and on back of that, the whole analytics and machine learning, everything else, the technology behind it has actually made changes to the way we are working or we're living. And the change is happening to 2 folds. One is to the customer, which is all of us, frankly, who are buying goods and services for sustaining a life. And then the enterprises where we work, for example, many of us actually work in IT companies which are building these capabilities, and the companies which are providing those services and goods to the consumers in the end, right? So I would say changes to the customer and changes to the enterprise. And you have so many examples, frankly. If you just look back and think about it, there's a huge amount of change that we all are going through right now. Start with booking a hotel, right? I mean, my wife and I were discussing that last 5 trips that we have made, we have used Airbnb, right? So I was asking her, I said, what was our experience? And I think it was a very good experience because you got what you really wanted, got a great service, a great rate, and a great place to stay. And you may be knowing that Airbnb doesn't own any property of their own. They have no capital assets, right? So, but they are the largest hotelier or the accommodation provider in the world now, right? So that has changed. So these technologies have led to a disruptive models which never existed earlier in the past, right? So I would say that's where we are leading to in terms of how a consumer can get benefited, and surely technology will help consumer to get better experience, better price and value for money, and a huge amount of disruption you can see in the business where enterprise have to really think about how to stay ahead of the game. And the people who will not think about that, they will be laggards, right? So the companies which you see now, like Google, Facebook, all those companies, they have really taken advanced step in terms of using technology to make those changes. Things like Google and Apple announcing they're going to get into our automotive sector was never heard about, and it's a big threat to the automotive companies as we go along.
Sure. Thank you for that. And Manisha, I'm going to skip over to you. And we'll talk about your technology part in a bit, but as a consumer of technology in the workplace, how do you see it evolving?
I think that technology has been a key enabler. As you see, a lot of growth happening with women in technology. pervasive internet and high bandwidth, right? Mobile access, Bluetooth-enabled apps, right? As well as hand-free devices. And now cars as well as buses, they're all getting Wi-Fi enabled, etc. So all of this put together, I think, has created a very different culture for women who are in technology and are working. Right? So it's a great enabler for us. Also, I would say tools that are used at workplace. For example, at Accenture, we use Link. And that's a great tool, again, that's available for use on the laptop. It's available on the phone as well as on tablets. Right? So you can handle calls and get into meetings from anywhere. You could be on the road and be doing a video conferencing. Right? So that's no longer just a dream, it's actually a reality today. So I think this is bringing out a different kind of a work culture environment for women in technology to take, leverage it, I would say. The other aspects are tools like Yammer, right? So they are helping out bring, more of the social connectivity that is happening at the workplace. So the experience that we feel going on Facebook and Twitter, etc., we are bringing those experiences and that environment into our workplace as well. So it almost feels at home. So I would say all this technology that enablement that has happened is helping us merge, our work life, our home life, and our social life, which has become very important aspect of us today. So I would just say, leverage the opportunity, leverage these newer technologies in digital today, right? Because they empower us, right, and increase our productivity.
Absolutely, and I think it's so rightly said, right? The virtual office is actually an absolute reality today, whether it's desktop sharing to whatever else. Thank you for saying that, Manisha. Jayant, let me skip over to you. You are our technology growth platform lead, right? What are the top 3 trends in technology that you see evolving in the near future?
I think, first of all, it's great to be here. About a couple of months back, I was there at the Grace Hopper event at for the hackathon as well. So it's really nice to see the enthusiasm and that's coming through here. That's really great. Before I get to your question, let me maybe poke a question to folks here. How many of you, are from Chennai here? Or have family or friends in Chennai? And how have you been catching up on the news that's, what's happening in Chennai? How have you been catching up on it? WhatsApp, Facebook. Yeah. How many of you have actually looked up TV news channels to follow the news? Do you think? Right, you're absolutely right. Right. Yeah. So actually, you're finding that Twitter has got a better information feed than this. So you're starting to see. How many of you shop online versus at malls? Yeah. How many of you actually track doing that? Actually track. Hey, when is my thing coming? When is my thing coming? Right. And you get frustrated that, hey, what? It's going to take you a week, and then you fight with that guy. I'm there. Why are you not here? As you said, 9 a.m. I'm here. So I think really these are behaviors, really consumer behaviors which are driving things. Now, what is enabling this? Your expectations have changed. I think that's really what Sanjeev and, as consumers, all our expectations have tremendously, what is driving that? Key thing is underlying technologies. Cloud has been one of the fundamental enablers of this. So I think I'll come to that a little bit, detail that. The other is automation. And when I say automation, it's from your side, your need for having things faster means the business has to do things faster. Things that were done more mechanically has to be automated. The need for robotic automation, mechanical things, does that mean, I think this is where I think one of the things comes up is our robots going to start becoming, I think that's where we are starting to see things more optimized, where we are able to see programmers and software engineers starting to feel their way into this area of automation. So this is completely new. Cloud is a very key area because that is a very key enabler. And the third is, how many of you drive swanky cars? A BMW.
We like to believe we drive swanky cars.
So you still have, so most families, while you want to have a BMW, the population has, aspire to a BMW, you still have your Maruti and your ambassadors around. And that's typically true of businesses themselves. While we all want to be in all the newer technologies, we still have legacy. We still have the legacy, and we have to blend into both. It is not I give up one for the other, right? It is including the, what Sanjeev said, while most people here don't use the analog phone, I gave a smartphone to my dad who can barely not see, right? He cannot see. He found it very difficult because he didn't know where to press. And he struggled with it. He actually reverted back to an analog phone. So I think it's really about meeting the need, I think that we have to kind of start addressing too. And matching that need on demand is going to be key. The technology that's going to be there underlying is going to be things around AI is going to be huge, where we want systems to learn. Automation, first generation of automation is going to be more about taking the mechanical tasks, making them the repetitive tasks, making them automated. The next generation is going to be, hey, you're collecting so much data about it, can I learn from it? Can I learn from these episodes yesterday at Twitter feeds and, hey, these areas are getting affected in Chennai more. Is there some method to this madness? Can I make sure that next time something happens, can I feed that data back into my planning things? Yeah, that'll be another day, but definitely so. But I think that's where I see a lot of these things are being driven not by many, the Twitters and the WhatsApps. They're being driven by a few people who really had the idea and ability and this to take it to market. I think you're going to start seeing that trend very tremendously.
Thank you, Jain, for saying that. Guys, before I go on any further, I've begun to realize that the temperature in this room is going up. It probably has nothing to do with our hotness, but never mind. Apologies. I do believe that Taj is trying to fix it. So thank you for your patience with that. All right. So let me, you were talking about dad, right? I remembered my dad when he said, I need a smartphone. Everybody's having a smartphone. So I actually got him one. And one of his first complaints was, there are no buttons here. How do you deal with this, right? So you're right. It's about catering to the right set of audiences. Absolutely. Talking about catering to the right set of audiences, Somala, what are our clients looking for, right? I mean, you lead our corporate strategy on technology. What are our clients looking for these days as it relates to technology?
So before I go to your question, Dhanya, I'm very excited and very happy to see a room full of 200 women. I've never seen this ever in my life where there's so many women in one place. Thanks for coming over. And now going over to what Dhanya said, you heard Jay and Sanjeev and Manisha talk about the technology bit and all the cool stuff that's going on. So I'm going to talk about the uncool stuff for a little bit. So I think by show of hand, how many of you are from the IT services industry in this room? It's a vast majority. So when I talk about IT services, it's not going to fall on deaf ears. Just trying to make sure. So they talked about all the technology trends that's underlying and that's changing, and it's a very, very dynamic world out there. So I think the first good news is our clients, the industries, their spend on IT services is actually increasing. So that means actually opportunities for all of us here, and if we do it well, it's going to grow exponentially. So that said, and I'm going to take a step back, and we heard about digital technologies. We heard about all the trends that are happening. So the question is, what is our client buying, right? So if you have a portfolio of services that you're buying from service providers, there was legacy, as Jen talked about. Legacy in terms of our own consumables is also there, but the clients also have a huge legacy IT services that have been enabling them for all these years. But there is the digital threat, there's disruption. So they are scared of disruption in their own business. The technology is changing. There's a whole lot of variables to deal with. But if you look at some of the studies, so it shows that clearly there is a shift in the way they are spending, in the way they are buying technology. But there is a huge bit that's still in the legacy services. So I think as technologies, as the IT services industry, we need to take our clients from where they are with the legacy systems and help them transition. So that one part is transition, taking your legacy to the new world. And the second part is how do you transform them from the very different, from the outperform perspective, right? You have companies like Uber, you have Airbnb, they do not have any legacy. Right? So how do you cater to them? to them, you have a different set of services. So when you are looking at the IT services companies, we are dealing with customers that are different stages of maturity in terms of their journey. So you cannot have a one-size-fits-all. Like consumers, we wouldn't accept one-size-fits-all. So we are actually looking at different ways of serving the needs of the customers. So that was point number one. Point number two is, when you look at the IT services, the way it was traditionally served to our customers, it was all through the IT services organization within those enterprises, right? The CIO was actually making the buying decision. He was saying, yes, I'm going to buy services from X company, Y company, Z company. But things are changing. Because when you look at the landscape now, we are not only selling to the CIOs, but we are selling to a whole different layer of stakeholders within the organization. The marketing team is actually making purchase decisions about their social media tools that they're going to buy. So you're no more going to the CIO. So as an IT organization, what do? So you have to actually sell to the CMO's organization, to the marketing organization. If you look at the finance teams, right? They are making purchase decisions about the tools that's going to enable them to keep pace with the businesses that they are actually supporting within the organization. So to the question about who is buying it, so it's not only the IT organizations, it's everybody. So, and I think those were the two big things. I think the changes that you see in the buying pattern of our clients.
Thank you. Guys, girls, got a question? Please make sure that you SMS, but happy if you can put up your hand as well and I can take it live at any point. Any questions at this point that any of you would like me to take? Right? Sure.
What's the role of women in creating these kind of disruptive technologies?
Sure. Okay. Role of women in creating disruptive technologies. Sure. So Manisha, any as our sorry, just one point before I hand it over to you. When we speak about the role of women per se, I think the fundamental principle is talent, right? It's the talent-led lens that's actually going to be relevant in today's and tomorrow's world. So when we're talking about who's the kind of talent that will make sense in tomorrow, I don't think it's about men versus women, but it's actually about the best talent. And when you talk about women in technology, I think the endeavor is to make sure that that talent gets uncovered and gets showcased and is best positioned, right? So that's the way I would respond to it.
I'd just like to qualify the question because we end up talking about women bringing different skill sets to the table, right? So that's why I'm asking what different skill sets can they enable in creating disruptive technology?
Sure.
I can talk about the different skill sets rather than actually women specifically. I mean, one thing which is happening is there's a shift in the industry. The skill set that are required for the future are slightly different than what we needed in 10 years back when we talked about technology as a subject. One skill set which is extremely important going forward is the skill set around experience and creative technologies, which is not about being an engineer, I mean, in a layman term, but is more about being more creative person who can visualize an experience for the end customer. And customer could be an end customer like you who's buying some goods and services, and can be also a user within your own company who's also, is a part of the organization and is looking for some data information or some transaction inside the company. But that's what I see. That's one example I can tell you, because there's a lot of need for now creative people in the technology space. So we call it. So that's one. The second area is a lot of hardware and a sensor technologies, embedded technologies are required, and now software as well. Because as we are going into the next stage of IoT, Internet of Things, it's not only about building software, but it's also connecting the software to various machines and devices. So that's another area where we see huge amount of new talent being seen in this industry. But those are two areas which I can think. And again, this creates opportunity for everybody, frankly. But depending on who comes from which background, it depends, what you can.
Right, absolutely, Sanjeev. Just to add to what Sanjeev said, we have launched a program called High Tech Women. And what we've done, part of that program, is we're looking at women who are across different industry segments. Because technology by itself cannot solve a business problem, right? And a good understanding of what's happening within that industry, and then applying the right technology to help solve that business is what we are looking women to, groom themselves into. So this program that we've launched helps us pick the women from these various industry segments and then align the right technology, that they can hone and grow and, use as an innovation platform. For example, if it's health industry, we all know that patient care management is a very big initiative going on there, right? With patients wearing, with all these wearable devices to track and monitor your vitals and organs, a lot that happens in that area again is more connected and with IoT, Internet of Things. So that's one track that we think is excellent part for women to own up and take and grow in. If you're looking at telecom industries, right, there's a huge competition between the different telco providers, right? And there we see a usage of a lot of analytics. So again, that becomes an avenue to take up, own up, and bring in some innovation there. So I think innovation, can be across different industries, and it could be applying the right technology which would bring benefits to that particular industry.
Thank you, Manisha. So, Jayant, that's a good segue for the question on what are the next gen skills that we're really talking about?
So I think Sanjeev covered quite a couple of. I think the digital ones are definitely the up and coming ones, which to kind of cover what Somla also said. I think the technologist role is no longer a pure technologist role. You're not marketing to a technologist. You are marketing to a business technologist. So several folks, as they mature into leadership roles, you will find this boundary between business and technology will start blurring much more, and you are facing off with the customer much more. So these skills that you're going to require definitely are going to be the client skills, the softer skills are going to be huge. So I think it's a given. You cannot be just in a shell. That's one thing. That said, there are definitely, as we are looking forward, as I said, deep technologists are required. We need the new skill sets. We need the creative capabilities. But I think over the last, as an industry, the services industry has moved towards a more generalist career path. I think one of the things that these new technologies are showing us is you need deep experts, be it in analytics, data sciences, be it in programming, newer programming dimensions. We are getting into the concept of model-based architectures. We are getting into the concept of, because of the need for really two things. We talked about your need for getting things faster. What is that? It's really about things being done in an agile manner. The other theme that's coming up, which is forcing that, is a theme called DevOps, which is very fundamental to this, about delivering software in a more modular, faster fashion. Now, it's like the nuts and bolts of an enterprise, but I need that nuts and bolts to work better. So that said, the skill set, if I were you, I would, let me put myself, maybe when I started my career, I started my career in C++, and then I moved on to Java. And I've been to Java, then I picked up a few other languages along the way. But you cannot, I think in your space, you're seeing something new come out every 2 to 4 years. You have to be able to be flexible and to pick up new skills. The concept of somebody teaching you may be less, so I think you may have to pick it up on your own. So I think that flexibility and opportunity should be there. I think availability is definitely much more now. You are able to access these technologies and faster than a training program can come together. So I think, but that deep expertise is absolutely key. Have an area that you can call your own. I think that's very important.
Absolutely, and I think if I just synthesize a couple of things that you said, one is have your own expertise, which is continue investing in what you would call your career capital. How do you build the skills, and how do you be agile to the world that's changing around you? And the second part that I picked up is then your ability to actually communicate that expertise,
Absolutely.
right? Which is where your own client-facing, front-ending skills come into play, because it's true, as Somala was sharing a little bit ago, the client in their traditional sense has changed, and we are having to, in many cases, deliver as we sell and sell as we deliver, and therefore the one area that I can pick up as a key point is, as much as we are technologists, our ability to communicate that expertise is going to be key. So thank you for saying that. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into careers of women in technology at this point. You know, when we talk about women in technology, one of the things that we've constantly heard is we don't see too many people up. We don't see people investing and staying the course as women technologists, right? And a lot of it has to do with how women in their traditional roles in the society and how they sort of balance life stages with what happens in the organization. And therefore, one of the evolving thoughts over here is, how do we stay intentional about women growing? Okay, that was weird. How do we stay intentional about women growing their careers in technology as a technologist, if you will, right? And not moving to, say, program management roles, etc., which typically, more often than not, ends up happening. So turning this over to you, Manisha, you've grown through the ranks, right? And you've stayed true to your technologist career dreams, if you will, and you know, you're one of our youngest managing directors, if you will. So talk to us a little bit about what that intentionality meant for you in staying in the technology career.
Sure. And I think many of you may resonate with what I'm going to say here, you know. So I essentially feel that, you know, our career journey, right, is divided into 3 phases. You know, the early career, when we're just getting in fresh from college and university. I think at that point of time, what is really needed is the attitude to learn more, to have that thirst, to have that passion, you know, and to ask questions, right? And always be curious to ask questions, right? And not give up at any point. So I think that in the early career, you know, breaking those barriers, I think, becomes important, and that is what I leveraged. The second one is the most critical, right? Where you're going through a life-changing event, right? That's your mid-career kind of journey, right? So I don't know how many here, let me ask, how many of you have gone through life events in the terms of marriage or children and have taken breaks? Yeah, quite a few, right? So, and that's pretty natural to us, right? That we would be taking, you know, these breaks as well, right? It happens. So I think during this mid-career management area is where I would think is, you take that break, think about how you will relaunch yourself, right? That is what I was, when I took a break, I took a first break when my son was born, I went to a part-time work mode. You know, and then I took another break when I had a second child, was juggling too many things at that time. So while I was home, I decided to take up join a management program that was focused on IT. Right, so I took that up, and I was constantly reading up, you know, on the spare time. You know, as a child is sleeping and resting, I would utilize that time to go out on the internet and see what else is going on, and just being aware of newer stuff that was coming in, trying to see if I could go out there and take some courses and get myself ready, you know, so upskill myself such that I'm ready to then launch back myself. Right, I think that becomes very, very important. I want to just, this is one thing that I had read about earlier, and it stuck with me. And that is, you know, mid-year crisis, right, could come for men. But for women, it's always about reinventing ourselves. Right? And I just always, so I always remember this and say, okay, no, we have to replan, and we have to keep thinking of ways, different ways to make things work as we multitask, right, and try to, you know, balance things. I hate that word work-life balance, you know, because who is ever going to choose work over life, right? I would just call it a work-life merge, you know, and technology is helping us in that area. So I would say have that attitude of work-life merge where you want to do and push yourself and reinvent yourself at work. You also want to be doing the best for your family, you know. Kids and husband also need that attention. You're going to be doing that, but don't overdo it. You know, recently there was an article from Chetan Bhagat also who said that especially Indian women, right, we tend to make our lives very stressful. That's because, you know, we want to achieve 100% in everything. We want to be the best of mothers. We want all our children to get 100%. We want to be the best at work. So, you know, but given a particular phase, right, if your project is going in a hectic mode, right, and it's demanding more of your attention, it's okay if you're making one dish at home that day. You know, it's perfectly all right. So I think that understanding and that's the attitude we will need to, you know, own up if we want to grow. And then the last phase is about, you know, taking up more senior management roles. And that's where I would say leverage everything that's happening in your organization. Because organizations are bringing a lot of awareness on inclusion and diversity. There are a number of programs out there for growing women, right, in technology. Leverage that, get the best of mentors, get the right coaches and sponsors. And women can mentor women as well, right? So we have two hackathon teams today, you know, who are participating as finalists. And I would say those two teams, we were, you know, I was personally mentoring them, you know, and it was fantastic experience, right? Because they came from very diverse different cities, and here they are put together to build the solution for an NGO. And so they've learned a lot of things together, right? One, how to collaborate and work across. You know, you're doing your day job, but you're also doing this, right? So balancing that thing, right? Working in an agile mode, extreme programming kind of thing, because you're given a timeline and you have to deliver something in that timeline. So those aspects came in. At the end of the day, I think that the fact that they are here today is a huge recognition, right? So please keep that in mind, and that's what I could share from my experience, you know, that don't overdo, you know, don't try to be 100% in all areas at all times. It's okay, you know, to you know, divide that up also, you know, and use that time, and then keep, you know, reinventing yourself. One last thing that I want to add here is don't cross the bridge before you're on it, right? And some of you, again, may be able to resonate to this as well, you know, where I've had members in my team sometimes come to me and say, you know, I'm planning a family, so I don't want to take up this role right now. And I'm like, great, you're you know, planning a family, but you're not there yet. Why are you making a decision so early in time, right? Why don't you look at it once you give it a try, right? When you're there and you feel that it's not working out, yes, we juggle then. But why are you making a decision so early? And this is not just us, right? I would say there's a book out there, if you want, you can just read it up. It's a small book called Cinderella Ate My Daughter. You know, and this was also quoted in, you know, Lean In, the book by Sheryl Sandberg. So in this book, it's a narration about, you know, a story about a 5-year-old. She's a kindergartner. And in school, they ask them, what would you like to be when you grow up? And this little girl wants to be an astronaut. She's passionate about space and, you know, all of that. But she thinks and thinks, and then finally, she ends up saying she wants to be a teacher. So when she comes home and she talks to her mother's like, why did you even decide this? Why did you say you want to be a teacher when I know that you're all the time, you know, you're talking about space and astronauts? So this little girl says, Mom, but I was worried that if I went into space, who would take care of my children? You know, so, you know, the major challenge to space travel was, you know, it came down to dependable childcare. You know? And that's what runs in our mind, you know, and that's what we need to change. That's all I had to share from my experience.
Very, very nicely said. Very nicely said. And you know, organizations today are making that investment as well, right? So the entire load is not just on women's shoulders to make sure that they're able to balance everything out. And how many of you, okay, before that, there are giveaways for good questions, so just thought I'll leave that over there. But how many of you are familiar with Accenture's maternity policy? Okay, so for the benefit of the rest, let me say this. The government of India requires organizations to give 3 months of paid leave and an additional 1 month of paid leave in case of medical complications. That's the government of India's policy, right? But what Accenture did last year, and it was driven by the need to make sure that our women are able to have the right level of organizational support, is we changed it to a 5 months of paid leave plus an additional 1 month of paid leave in case you have medical complications. And I'm not done yet. and an additional 3 months of unpaid leave, almost taking up the time away from work very legitimately to 9 months, right? So 9 months till the time the child is actually able to be fed on other foods than the mother's milk. And this, again, in support with our childcare policies, etc. And I must say that the amount of excitement and the kind of emails that we receive from our women saying, this has truly made a difference, right? And I'm sure many, many organizations are going to be doing similar stuff in the future. The reason I'm bringing this out is this is not a women-only issue anymore. People are waking up to the fact that it is to our benefit that the world is inclusive. We cannot operate with 50% of the world's population sitting outside of the workforce and making decisions where required, right? So there's a fundamental shift in thinking, and therefore, as women in technology that you are sitting in this room today, there's a huge advantage that you can take out of this, right? I'm going to ask one more question. How many of you feel that men play a role in actually enabling the success of women? Awesome. Absolutely, absolutely. Because if, it's simple, right? You have two hands. One hand is, 50%, and the other hand is 50%. If both don't come together, there's no clap. So let me transition back to the men on the dais, right? What do you think is the role of men as advocates in the whole process of enabling women in leadership, women in technology, and what is the role that men as leaders play? Jain?
I think when I look at it, Manisha's really good. She related the story as well. I think one of the key things is, as we look at it, is it's not really about just women. I think that's one of the key things, right? When we start doing things just for women or just for men, I think that's where we start making that distinction. Whereas I think when we're starting to put technologies, I think it's a natural balancer of all these things. I think as long as, from my perspective, the opportunity is there for both. I think there are, and different people, and both men and women they start on the same path. And if I steal from Manisha's analogies of three stages, right? And the second stage is really when there are some juggling to be done. Reach out to the organization, and that's where I think do not think that you are in this on your own, right? I think what Manisha said is right? I think they think that you have to achieve everything and now and this, and also don't feel that you are in it by yourself. I think it's important that the organization is there, and that's where I think, as men, I think it's important for us, to understand how we drive this. Like, for instance, I've got twins. I've got a boy and a girl. My son's just happy doing, rap music, but my daughter is the one who's putting together the Lego. We bought the Lego, the Mindstorm. She's the one putting that Mindstorm together and programming it and running it. They're just 10-year-olds. So I think the opportunity, as long as the key is the opportunity needs to be there, and we need to make sure. But I think the key is for us to not start putting some things like men only, women only, I think.
I agree. Sanjeev, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think in life and at work, right? Life, I think I have a very simple rule. I'm a good listener. And so I'm just thinking, because we have many women at home, right? So, so my mother, my wife, my cousins, my nephew, my niece, tons of them, right? They all come and meet me, and the only thing which I do, I think, I'm just thinking, given that you asked me a question, I just thought about it. What do I do, actually? I actually listen to them, and that works very well. And I do help them and support them, but before you support somebody, you first listen as to what somebody is saying. So that actually works well. At work, I think I'll make 2 points. One is flexibility. I think that's extremely critical in tomorrow's world. And the good thing is, we talked about this all changing world and changing paradigm. There's a huge change going to happen in the workforce itself, in terms of talent, in terms of what we need for future. And we are making that shift hugely in terms of how we rotate to new. So one of the big programs that I'm running in the company right now in Accenture is I have a remit of transforming 200,000 people to new. That's what I'm working on. So it's called rotation to new, right? So in that program, there are multiple things. Learning is a very important aspect. But beyond learning, the most important aspect is that we look for specialized roles. So And these are very critical roles, and they don't need to be 9 hours role, right? So some of them are very flexible, and we have many of them coming in the future where people can do work from home. They don't need to be around the team because they need more creative mindset. So you have to be ideally in isolation to come out with some great ideas. And but then they do a teaming around the world, because most of the teams are now not in one single location as well. They're all over the place. So you don't actually meet the person for 2 months, but that person is a part of your team. So it doesn't actually matter whether you're at home or at work. But again, for specialized roles. But I'm just saying there's a lot of flexibility which is being offered right now in the times to come. And I see more and more that happening in 5 years from now because of the entire crowd, sourcing and crowd effort which is going on. So that's one. The second point is around. I heard people talking about, you talked about the three lifespans, and again, a lot of people have come back to me as well as talking about how difficult it becomes to get to the senior management, right? Because that's where, you just have you have a peaks and lows, and then you figure out how do I now bump and leapfrog, right, in your career. So just want to let you know, and this is very fresh as of yesterday. So we do something called as leadership development program. That's our stepping stone in the company to become a managing director, right? So we look at all the great people in the world and bring them together to 1 year of intervention. And they get to meet the top leaders of the company, and they get to work on a project together. And these are multicultural, very diverse projects, right, from various streams, and they come from various countries and work together. So it's not going to be like two Indians working together. It's like a person from India, a person from China, a person from Argentina. They work together and they come out and deliver engagement. So we do it every year. Every year we shortlist hundreds of people in that, and that becomes a leadership pipeline for managing directors. So I'm a sponsor for a large portion of that team. And yesterday we looked at diversity as because diversity for me is a very critical element, right? So, and for me, diversity is not only gender but also cultural and everything else, if you may, right? But we have huge, significant amount of women in that pool. So I'm just letting you know that's the investment we make to make sure that we are grooming people for next generation leaders as well.
Thank you for sharing that, because when we talk about intentionality, the organization demonstrates. This is an example of that intentionality, whether it is how we have very structured sponsorship programs that allow our women to grow through the pipeline, or positioning them consciously for very high-end opportunities, if you will, and creating that space and platform to demonstrate. And definitely the LDP program is one of the highest levels of doing that. So thank you. I am going to be opening the floor for questions in a minute, but before that, knowing how big a role men play, there is an action that all of us can take away from here as well as we exit. I think some of our men, I don't mean both of you, okay, but some of our men are very unsure about how to be partners in the diversity journey. Right? And we as women have a role to play in that. We have an opportunity to educate and actually convert them as advocates, whether they are our husbands, our brothers, our not husbands, husband, or or brothers, or in the workplace, our colleagues, etc. But how do we make sure that we actually, like he said, how do we get them to listen? How do we get them to understand who we are, what our potential is, and what our aspirations are? So on that note, I would like a big round of applause to the men in the room for being big gender advocates. Thank you for that. And I'm now open for questions. Yes, please. Before you begin, your name and the organization you represent.
Hi, I'm Mayuri.
You can take the mic.
So, my name is Mayuri, and I'm from JP Morgan. Manisha, you touched upon a very small, about mentoring, okay? And nowadays I know that mentoring really plays an important role, especially when you go on the higher level. So, I know mentor is important, but what would you, give some tips or some 2 things which I should be looking into a mentor and what I should expect from a mentor?
Sure.
Thanks.
So I'd say, Mayuri, when you're looking for a mentor, look for someone, who understands what are the initiatives or bigger initiatives that are running within the organization, and then be able to have an understanding of where you stand and be able to help you build that roadmap, right? Whether it's a short-term plan or a long-term plan. So someone who has that ability to understand the organization and the initiatives in the organization and also understand where you are, and that's the way he or she will be able to then tell you that you should take this path to get to this particular end. And for you, it will be important to have that regular connect with a mentor, so you can talk to them about, what's your goal, what's your end goal, right? And navigate through that. I would say that's most important. Having the right connects with the mentor, and the mentor having the ability to fix, or understand your positioning, and then understand where are the bigger initiatives and help you position you through them.
I'll just add
Hi.
a little bit to that. Sorry, I'll just add a little bit to that. When we talk about a mentor, and if you want to say who's the right mentor, it's a person who has two fundamental qualities, in my view, as we look at how careers grow. One is their ability to understand and invest in you as a talent, and two is their ability to influence your growth path within the context that you are. So both these, in equal measure, in combination of how Manisha put it up, right, with the regular connects, and how do you make sure that you're doing that? I think that's the combo.
I
Yes.
completely agree. The influencing part is very important.
So I'm going to put
hello.
Sure, please.
a little contrarian view to what other women on the panel said. So I think a mentor should be somebody who should challenge you. So in my life, I think the most critical point where I moved from technology to the dark side came from a man who questioned my ability to at least to be successful on the other side. So he said, "Will you be successful? Do you have a degree? Can you do it? You have been a technologist. You write code, you test. Can you do that?" So that was a challenge. Somebody who will push back. I think that's needed more and more. I think you can look at a challenge, or you can think of it as an opportunity. I think that's what you should also try to do. If somebody says, "Yeah, this is the path from A to B to C," I think you should look for somebody who will take you through a little circuitous route, because that's where you will learn. That's where you will challenge yourself.
So if I'll add to that, right, I think it's an important point. I think you brought up a very key point, because it's very critical, especially as you go through it. You don't need one mentor only. Don't assume. You can have multiples, and you can change as well, and you can have for different parts. You can have different people whom you can tap into. It's a network that you're building, understand. But most importantly, if you're going to have a mentor, invest in it. Do not make it as a chore. If you think of it as a chore, it will continue to be a chore. Invest in it. Like what Somla said, it's very important. If they're going to challenge you, you need to invest in it. Unless you're invested in it, they will not. It'll be another meeting, and it'll be on the calendar, and you'll say hello, hi, and talk about the weather and move on.
So that was a great question that gets a goodie. Okay.
Hi, this is Sindhu here from ESCO Technology.
Okay.
My question is about diversity. Of late, almost all the IT companies are coming with a lot of HR policies to improve their diversity percentage in the companies. But what really matters from what I see in the teams is, in their mid-level, the 7 to 8 years, it's that mindset of every individual matters, because they are put in a dilemma of whether to choose a career or not to do it. So what does you do to enable the change in the mindset, apart from the policies that are put in place?
I'm happy to take the question. Okay, all right. So two things. You're absolutely spot on, because it's more an attitude-related shift that's required, both at the individual level and at the decision makers who influence that individual's circumstance, right? So two things to that. One is, when we talk about, we alluded to the men as advocates as a topic. The one thing that we've begun within Accenture, and I can speak of Accenture, is we've begun on this journey where we are very consciously asking our men to be advocates of gender diversity. We've had our leaders literally do road shows, men leaders do road shows across our offices to be able to invite other men to co-partner in this. In other words, we are actually saying, right to the first team lead level, right, where the decision gets made, how do we make sure that they are being engaged formally and in a very proactive manner into this process? So that's from an organizational mind shift, and this in along with several other sensitization trainings that happen in terms of culture. On the individual side, right, there is a whole lot of investment that's being made in the form of development programs that's targeted at women. Manisha spoke about how different career stages happen, right? You have your early careers, your mid careers, etc., which is where the real decision points happen in a woman's life. And over the course of the next 1 week itself, you will actually see a webcast happening on our Vahini network on the topic of intentionality of careers. So we're actually getting our topmost leaders, who are CHRO, which is Ellen Shook, who's our chief leadership and HR officer, we have Adrian, people coming in and talking about these intentionality, which almost becomes the stepping stone for what you will start seeing as a series of modules that are targeted at how do we help our women make these decisions for themselves, what's right for them in their context, right? So that's something that I would share with you from an attitude perspective. But as I was saying that, I wanted a quick check. How many of you are familiar with Vahini? Okay, so let me tell you what Vahini is. Vahini is a professional women's network that Accenture runs. It's been in existence for the last 10 years. 2005 we launched it, 2009 we went external, which means that today we have around 83,000 women who are part of the Vahini network and take advantage of what comes through that network. So if you all are already not there, I'm going to actually encourage you to go to our career booth, make sure that you sign up to the network. You will find it incredibly useful because not only will you hear about, leaders speak about how their life experiences have been, but you'll also have an opportunity to apply for careers at Accenture. So please do take a moment to sign up to the Vahini network. Okay, one last question, I believe. Okay, the person with the mic, but the mic is not working. How do I decide? Okay, please, 2 questions, or 3 maybe, yes. Mobility is a challenge for women, yes? Okay. Okay, before I respond to that, how many of you know how large Accenture is globally?
Make a guess.
Take a guess, guys. Take a guess. How much?
30.
Sorry, I'm not hearing. 80,000? 330,000. Okay, that deserves a goodie, okay? Yes, we are 330,000 employees globally. And do you know which is the largest geography for Accenture? India, of course, has to be India, right? So which means that there is careers for all. There's absolute careers for all. We are constantly hiring, we are growing, which means that, you want to refer anybody, spouse, brother, whoever, anyone qualified to be in the world of where Accenture operates in, absolutely, absolutely.
Hello, I am Dr. Neelima. I am from a different platform than many of us present here. I am a professor in one of the engineering college. So I just wanted to ask you a different perspective. So the companies, many of the MNCs are doing many things like, supporting women through maternity leaves or some kind of benefit for the women. So being a teacher, I just wanted to ask you, because I have a close observation when I talk to the students or my alumni students, I see that the confidence in women grows when they actually do higher education. Yeah, many women go for a job immediately after their undergrads, and at mid-career level they stuck because they have not done their higher education. So why not industries come forward? Because I have observed in US that there are a lot of on-the-job training programs. A few of the companies are supporting still, but what I see is it should grow in a bigger number because the training gives the confidence in women to take up the challenges.
I get the question. So Jayant, can I turn this over to you to talk about some of the investment we make in higher education programs as well as...
So we do it, so this is a very key thing. One is our partnership. We've got, tremendous amount of partnerships with academic institutions, both. We have tremendous amount of, we make learning and knowledge management is a key tenet for us. It's an investment. We don't think of it as people as our asset, and learning is a key aspect of this. Across the board, we have to keep our people relevant. It's very critical for us, and we have to adapt. as part of that, we partner with, we are not under the illusion that we have all the knowledge amongst us. We have all, so we partner with other institutes to do it, right from the global institutes like MIT and others to Indian institutes within India as well. And we have various programs, right from short-term interventions to online courses to actually a program over a couple of years to drive things. So it can range to various things depending upon what kind of a intervention that person requires. Again, as we talked about all this technology, if you took back a few years back, it was a typical model of I need a BSc, MSc, BTech, MTech. That's model. I think as we're going forward, the concept of nano degrees is what's coming in. What is it that I need at intervention for that? Do I need to learn everything else when I need really this particular thing? I think that's the model that we.
I think the problem which is here is it's a India issue versus West, right? I mean, Western education is kind of slightly, in my view, personal view, is slightly more mature and more closer to the industry, right? Versus we still teach a lot of theory with less industrial involvement, right? While people are doing undergrad and beyond that, right? So to me, I think it's a much larger and wider problem. It's not a women problem for sure. It's a much larger problem in the country, and we are actually in a very advanced stage of talking to many universities in India to see how can we help them change the pattern of this education in the next 5 years. But a lot of step has to be taken by them as well, because industry cannot just push into them, because right now if you see, all the companies actually they pick up the people from the colleges and they hugely invest after that, which should not be the case. Ideally speaking, people should be ready for a job when they come out of colleges, but that's not true in India. Versus in Western countries, when they come out of college, they are already kind of in a co-op model. They are actually already, they have credit courses which actually help them do a real-time, real scenario, industry scenarios before they actually come out of the colleges. So that's a huge difference in the academic pattern. The other question that I want to let you know is, I totally disagree with the concept that post-grad is important. Now, I never disagreed when I graduated, which was 25 years back or maybe plus, right? But those times it was different because there was a different industry was looking for different expectation from the people. That undergrad is a pretty good significant degree if you're doing good in your subject. Yes, you can always do post-grad after that or graduation after that, because that
Disabilities as a segment is being celebrated in the month of December, and in our hands-on lab you'll actually see a product that is designed for people with disabilities, particularly visual disabilities, and I strongly encourage you guys to take a look at that when we step out. Now to your question. And that's the last question, guys.
My name is Pragati and I'm from Microsoft. I see a lot of young women sitting here, so I just have one question. Now that India having more number of millennials than anybody in the world, and women in specific to speak about it, and most of them have plans to retire by 45, 50. They don't want to work beyond that because the lifespan is only 60 years as of today, right? There's a question, in my few interactions with the people, they get to see, okay, so do you really aspire to become a leader? The answer I get is like, oh, those people are there in the industry for 20, 25 years now. I don't have that much of patience. So I'll retire by 40, 45, so I don't aspire to be a leader there. So you as leader sitting over here on the board, what is differently that you guys are doing for the millennials to onboard quickly and more quicker than you guys might have taken in your careers to become leaders?
I can. I can. So I think, my understanding, we have been doing a lot of research on this topic as a company because it has a huge impact to our business. Because we are not in the industrial business, we are in a services business, which means we depend entirely on people. Right? If we have people, we make the work. If we don't have people, we don't make the work, right? So we are doing a lot of research in this. Our point of view is that the major shift that we see in the new world is that people want various experiences. They don't want to stick with one experience. That's the major shift versus in our generation versus generation Y versus a Z versus the new ones, right? So that's a major shift. So if any company which can provide that experience or a shift and rotation, I think people will be happy. So And then people need flexibility, relatively, but they are ready to work hard when they work hard, right? And so it's not about not working hard. It's just that the expectation is slightly different in the new world. And I think the companies have to make those changes as they go along. So there could be a sparkling 1% of population who really want to become leaders as well, because that's what excites them. Leadership excites them versus actually doing something else, right?
No, absolutely agree with you completely.
I think exactly like you said, Sanjeev, taking up different roles, right, and trying out different roles, we shouldn't be hesitating to do that. I think as we were growing up, it was more like, engineering or medicine or, things were so fixed. And I'm so happy to see that today there are so many wider choices. And the similar choices for education, there are those choices at workplace as well. So if you want to try out different roles, it's possible. The wider you have your breadth growing, right? As you specialize in one, but you are going to be growing more, with knowledge about what's happening around you, you will grow to become better leaders because you will have a say and you will have an understanding of what's going on in all those sectors and not just one. It doesn't limit you.
Right.
So take those opportunities in your organization to learn and grow across.
Right. Talking about millennials, the one thing that they want to do is also contribute towards making the world a better place, if you notice, right? And in that sense, we as women technologists in this room have also a little bit of that urge to contribute. So the hour of code that Accenture is pledged with is a great opportunity for you to contribute 1 hour of your time to actually, code, literally, and that's tech for good. So strongly encourage you guys to take that opportunity. You could go to the Accenture booth and register and take advantage of it. Before I let you guys go, I do have a goodie bag for each one of you at the end of this. But I do want a selfie with you guys before I do that. So can we get a selfie done? Okay. While they're organizing for the selfie, can I get the video up, please?
What I appreciate most about Rashmi is her ability to multitask. Rashmi's got a schedule which is, sometimes they run late into the night. Other days, it's early in the morning, because of where, our clients, our teams are located. I have a similar job, but then what we try and do for each other, and that's how I support her, is we share responsibilities equally at home. I try and step in whenever I can in terms of taking care of our baby, in terms of taking care of things around the house, so that she can, pursue her work responsibilities unhindered and do the best that she can do. It's about respecting each other's aspirations and supporting each other equally. As a husband, I try to keep her interests in mind and ensure that she is able to pursue her dreams fully.
She's a great project manager, very confident about herself. She knows what her goals are, and she would work with the team to make sure that the goals are met. A few things I do as a supervisor is to provide her the flexibility, provide her the kind of role she aspires to do, the right opportunity, the right environment. Also encourage her to take the lead.
When I first joined the project, it was a very complex landscape. I did not know anything about the clients, and I did not know anything about the stakeholders and what kind of relationships we had with the clients. I was amazed at the application landscape knowledge that Vidya had and the kind of relationships that she had built up with the clients. So Vidya guided me on every aspect, letting me understand what the application landscape is all about, interacting with various stakeholders in my presence so that I could understand what the dynamics were. And this really helped me assimilate into the project very well. As a team member, I look up to her to mentor me, to steer my career in the right direction.
As Transport Zonal Lead, her safety is my first priority. I ensure that my women colleagues at Accenture reach home safely every day.
we never had any difference between, boys and girls in our family. Amrita got exactly the same that I got from my parents. Whatever support she needed was given by us. She has learned to take decisions on her own. She can also decide when to take help from others and finally come to her own decision. As a father, I tried and understood her strengths. I backed her to choose any profession that she wanted to pursue.